The legendary investor Charlie Munger once said, "I don't care what you have to do. If it means walking everywhere and not eating anything that wasn't purchased with a coupon, you need to find a way to get your hands on $100,000. I'm Terrell Higgins, and I was able to achieve millionaire status in my mid-30s using a combination of real estate and stock investing. And today I'm going to be breaking down why your net worth skyrockets after $100,000. And I'll give you 4 strategies that you can use in your own finances to save that first $100,000. Let's get into it. There are 2 reasons why your net worth skyrockets after $100,000. So $100,000 is the critical mass threshold. So critical mass is defined as the minimum amount of something to start or create a sustained operation or process. So imagine your personal finances are like an atomic bomb. You need that initial explosion to be large enough to trigger the chain reaction that will lead to that bigger explosion. And $100,000 is that critical mass. And if you don't get to that number, then the whole thing can just fizzle out. So let me show you what I'm talking about here. So let's assume that you invest $15,000 a year into an S&P 500 index fund. And you get a 7% return every year from that S&P 500 index fund. So this is a very conservative number people like to use for S&P 500 returns if you account for inflation. To reach your first $100,000, it would take you 5.66 years to get there. And 85% of that $100,000 is from your direct contributions, and the other 15% is coming from returns in the stock market. Then to hit 200K, that'd be 4.08 years. 300K is 3.2 years. 400K is 2.63 years. And then 500K is 2.3 years. So you can see that the amount of time that it's taking to hit each subsequent $100,000 is getting shorter and shorter. And as you start to climb, more and more of that 100K is being made up by returns in the market. That final jump from $900,000 to $1 million is only going to take you 1.27 years. That is 4 times faster than it took you to save that first $100,000. And 38% of that is coming from your contributions, and the other 62% is coming from returns in the stock market. The other reason hitting 100K is such a significant milestone is because it breaks mental barriers for you. Hitting it as early as I did in my working career really made it seem like anything that I put my mind to was actually going to be possible with my finances. And it can take years or even decades to hit that first $100,000, depending on where you start. I mean, some people start in the hole trying to get out of high interest rate credit card debt, paying off student loans, just to climb back to zero and then climb to that first $100,000. And it is such a significant milestone because you've built up the behaviors that can continue to trend for the rest of your working career and adult life. It is so easy to get derailed by American consumption and spending and not actually have the discipline and consistency necessary to save that first $100,000. So we established why saving that first $100,000 is so important. So how do we actually go about doing this? So the biggest thing you want to do is try and live below your means. So a lot of people will tell you to stop eating out and clip coupons and do this or that. Those minor tweaks around the edges will help, and I'm not saying not to do those things, but I like to attack the largest line items in your budget first. So a lot of times people's housing can be 25 to 30% of their overall monthly budget. So if you can reduce those costs, it's going to make a large structural change to your savings rate. You're going to be able to pay off any high interest rate debt you have, and you're going to be able to start putting money away to actually save that first $100,000. So one functional way to save on your housing is to get a roommate. So you can move in with a family member, you can have a friend move into your home and you can split those costs, or you can actually rent out a room in your home on Airbnb. And this seems like a small change, but it can save you thousands of dollars per month. And that can be that initial seed money to actually start saving toward that $100,000. And if just getting a roommate is not enough to make ends meet and start building that surplus in your budget, you might even consider moving to a lower cost of living area. The next big thing that you can knock out of your monthly budget are car payments. So it is not uncommon for people to be spending over $1,000 a month in car payments.
We don't do that here.
And you should absolutely not do this if you're trying to save that first $100,000. And I would recommend never doing this during your financial journey. I know you want the latest and greatest twin turbo, Super Duty, King Ranch edition, whatever. Don't do it. It's not worth it. You'll get compliments for maybe the first couple months after you make that purchase, and then that new car smell will wear off. And you'll be right back in the market for looking for the latest and greatest new vehicle. Don't get stuck in this consumption cycle. You'll just keep rolling the payments over to the next vehicle and the next vehicle, and you'll be stuck in this cycle of paying thousands of dollars on a vehicle. You really want to buy something used that's affordable and you can pay off. And you want to drive it until the wheels fall off. Drive it into those maintenance costs start to outweigh the actual value of the vehicle. From the book, The Paradox of Choice, when people are faced with a bunch of decisions and options, most people will choose to do nothing. Imagine if every time one of your paychecks comes in, you're thinking about, should I be investing? Should it be in real estate or stocks or crypto? What about that credit card bill I had? What about that bill that I left on the counter? Should I be paying down on my student loans? Should I be making additional payments on my house? Can I even afford a house? If you have to think about all these things every time a paycheck comes in, you're not going to be making the best decisions. You want to automate as much of your finances as possible. The joy of automation is that you can balance your budget once, and if it is automated, you don't have to think about it ever again. If the default low energy thing is financial responsibility, that's what you're going to do every month. And if being financially responsible is difficult and hard, then you're not going to be financially responsible every month. So here's an example of the automation that I used at the beginning of my financial journey. And it was by no means optimized, but it worked. So I had my paycheck going into a checking account. And then from that checking account, I had auto payments for my car, for my home, for all my utilities. Any recurring monthly expenses were getting auto paid out of that checking account. And then I had a recurring draft from that checking account to a high yield savings account. And I was slowly building up an emergency savings in a high yield savings account. Then I had another bi-monthly recurring contribution from my checking account to a taxable brokerage. And that taxable brokerage was just investing in low cost S&P 500 index funds. And that came out just like all the other bills. I was automating, paying myself to my emergency fund, automating, paying myself to my taxable brokerage. And then any money that was left over, I automatically transferred over to a separate checking account, and that was my spending money. And I usually left about $1,000 of margin in that checking account just in case any bills fluctuated up or down. And occasionally I would look and check to make sure there was at least $1,000 in that checking account. But that was the automation that I had. And it was by no means optimized. That taxable brokerage probably should have been a Roth IRA, and I probably should have been funneling my spending all onto some sort of credit card that got auto paid so I could generate points. But at that point in my investing and financial journey, I didn't have the discipline to actually use a credit card. So was this plan optimized for tax savings and investments and credit card points and all that? No, it absolutely wasn't. Did it work? Did I balance my budget once and never have to think about it again? Yes, I did. And it allowed me to save that first $100,000. So what does my automation look like now that I'm a bit more financially disciplined and I know a bit more about personal finance? So when I started in my career, I wasn't working for a company that had a 401k match. I was in the military, and this was before the blended retirement system. They just had the 20-year pension retirement plan. So I was getting no matching into my 401k. But now I work for a very good company that has a 401k match. So I look at the 401k maximum contributions for the year and I calculate what percent of my income that is. And then I max out that 401k, that pre-tax traditional 401k account. Then that money goes into my checking account. And then from my checking account, I have an automated distribution to a high yield savings account. And anything beyond that 6-month emergency fund amount, we actually use to take vacations. And then I have an automated distribution to a taxable brokerage. And I also have an auto pay to a credit card. And that credit card is what I use for all my monthly spending. All my recurring bills go onto this credit card, and that credit card is automatically paid every month from the checking account. So this maximizes points for vacations and flights, and my discretionary spending is also done on this credit card. And I fully recognize when I started my financial journey, I did not have the discipline to do my discretionary spending on the credit card. I was not disciplined enough to not buy things that I couldn't afford and were outside of my monthly budget. But just after years of adhering to just using my checking account, I know what I can and what I cannot afford. So how do we speed this whole process up? And the quickest way to do that is to supercharge the income that you have coming in. So if you get promoted at work, any promotions that you get, you should be contributing that additional money towards saving to this first $100,000. A good strategy is to maintain a Word document or a folder on your computer at work of all your wins, all the things that have contributed value to your company. So at your next performance review, you can present to your boss why you've contributed value to the company and why you deserve this promotion. And if they aren't willing to recognize your value, then you might consider switching companies. So a raise at work is between 3 to 5%, but switching companies, you can expect a 10 to 20% boost in your income. Don't be afraid to put yourself out there. These companies are not loyal to you, so why would you be loyal to these companies? Make sure your resume is dusted off and you are ready to make that switch if they aren't recognizing the value you're bringing to the company. The other thing I want to talk about is side income. So everyone has their own specific skill set and things that they are really talented at. And you can get compensated for those skills. So if you go on Upwork and you use those skills correctly, it's possible to generate thousands of dollars per month working on the side. But I don't want you to work that Uber or DoorDash or Upwork or do consulting on the side and just use it to consume more things. You really want to have that additional income earmarked for either paying down high interest debt or earmarked for putting away so you can hit that first $100,000. The biggest thing with all of this is just being consistent. Building wealth is a marathon, not a sprint. And if you're curious what you should do after you actually achieve your financial goals, I actually did a full video on what you should do after you obtain your financial goals. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll catch you next time.